Welcome New York to episode 138. Uh, Time for us to talk about, for better or for worse, the League's Cup for the last time for the next 365 days or however long it is. Obviously, NYCFC crashed out. Um, Maybe not crashed out. It wasn't quite as bad as I think uh, some people might have thought based on what we've seen from this team in certain moments. But it seems like a similar team that we saw against Tigres, which we haven't had to talk about or had a chance to talk about yet either. Kind of showed up on that Columbus field, at least at the start, bringing some of that class along from the Tigres game. So it was kind of a turbulent experience. It felt amazing at the beginning when Alonso goes in and scores, I guess, the fastest goal in club history. They're ruling it at 14 seconds. I saw that ball cross the line at 12. So, whoever's calling it is calling it. But it was certainly roller coastery, which is not something we've talked about in a while with this team being.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, it was, you know, well, just context. I was riding a ferry from an island back to mainland, so I didn't even see it at first. I genuinely didn't see it until I figured like, okay, ferry's at 6:30. I'll be able to get to the other side 6:15. A couple minutes after kickoff, will be good. Not the case. I didn't want to get seasick and watch the game on the boat. Um, and then I arrived to land to a text from you saying we've already scored and it's the fastest in club history. Um, at that point, I mean, I might have jinxed it just myself because I personally was thinking like, wow, we're gonna go and steamroll these guys. Like it's not even gonna be a competition. We're just gonna put one after another and kind of get this thing done. Um, I had visions of us lifting the trophy literally from that point,
Oh no,
and then we
it might
went.
actually be on your head.
It might be on my head
Might
because then
actually
we
be.
literally went and did absolutely nothing for the other 90 minutes that we played.
It's almost like worse that we scored the goal early, which is weird. It's kind of like the saying when people say 2-0 is like the most dangerous score in soccer. That meme. But 1-0, I guess can be dangerous as well. I don't know. It felt like once we got that we did feel a bit like world beaters for a little while, and there were a few moments specifically. Everybody on Twitter was talking about Maxi. I'm not exactly sure what the timestamp was on that, but not long after Alonso scores, like Maxi had the opportunity to put what people were calling the dagger in like the 10th minute against the reigning MLS Cup champions, to play a ball across to either McFarland or I think it was Alonso,
Both.
both streaking completely unguarded. Like it was a 3v1 defender and the goalkeeper. And in the most uncharacteristic way ever, he decides in that moment to be selfish, which is something we've almost never seen out of Maxi, and it ends up becoming a corner that turns into nothing. And then from there, yeah, the game just kind of devolved into madness. If you're an NYCFC fan, watching them kind of become complacent, we were still up a goal, for most of that time. But then once Columbus scores right before halftime, it felt like the wind was fully in their sails. Like they were going to go and finish it before full time. Honestly, there was a number of occasions where it felt like, okay, this attack that they're building at this moment is going to end with them scoring. So I guess it's fair play to the boys that they were able to push them to the 90th minute, but there were moments where we shouldn't have let it get to the point that it did whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking back on it, it's annoying that we gave up. Obviously, what I thought was a game that we should have won, like scoring that early. Obviously, you mentioned the Maxi chance. Um, there's a few others that I don't remember the exact names, but just chances, early chances that we had, and then it went completely radio silent, and it was the complete opposite. Columbus having chance after chance, making some defensive errors. Tana just, I mean, Tana, man, I don't even know. I don't even know that I want to talk about it because it's just bad, and Burke can't be at 100% quick enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean it, and I tweeted it out during the game. Like at the end of the day, when you think of Tana having to match up against Cucho, like who is going to win uh, the matchup between those two men having to go against each other in any given scenario, regardless of what it is. Um, Unfortunately, as a center back, you're probably best case when it comes to guarding Cucho is when there's a ball being played in high and you have a chance to head it away from him and you don't have to deal with the ball at his feet at all. But Tana, found a way to screw up kind of the marking in that situation as well. And I know he's been getting a ton of flack, but like I said, when it's like Tana versus Cucho, like it almost feels like 100 out of 100 times like Cucho should probably be doing something that's going to result in a goal, and Tana is going to do something that is just going to screw it up. So I don't know. Maybe that's the conversation that we have later in the episode where it's like we've now just blown through the transfer window and we've made no moves. I was trying to think of like the last time that happened for the club, um, and I really couldn't think of it. Like we've always gotten at least some kind of piece or something, and I know we have Rio kind of like at this point rotting on the bench, and he came when he had a little bit of an injury. But if we know that Burke is unhealthy, and our best option has been Tana, who at best has been shaky, to be honest, every time we've seen him on the field, um, you wonder why some decisions were made to maybe like bolster what is one of, if not the most important position on the field in center back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not typically very harsh on players. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. You know how I am in group chats where I will give people every excuse in the book. I will make things up
Ladies and gentlemen,
parasocially,
on audio, he is wearing a Garnacho jersey. like,
parasocially tapping in to give them excuses. I can't like Watana. I just can't find it in myself to be like, oh well, but it's Cucho. But it's like you're a center back who's aspiring to be a starter in the MLS. You should
mm,
more times than not be able to stop anyone, let alone Cucho, who's very very good, but he's no there's better players in the league. There's better players in the world. So more times than not, you should be able to be effective defensively. You should. I mean, bare minimum, you should be able to win a header. Like you should just be able to do that. Um, and so I'm not rushing to give him any excuses, and I think he's got a long road to go if he's going to be thinking about starting for this team. And I mean, to the transfer portion that you're talking about, I think that they're just content with having Hack as kind of like a fix it up, plug any hole that you have type of guy.
yeah, and it felt like I'm kind of surprised that we've seen the transfer window come and go, and Hack didn't leave the team. I know with Jason's little, um, I don't even know what to call it, teaser on Instagram once Tales was sold, he put a 2 out of 3 up there, alluding to the fact that somebody else would be leaving. And I know us as longtime Hack supporters, we were definitely in the trenches hearing about different rumors related to Hack at one point. People were mentioning things about Scotland potentially, like a Jimmy type transfer when we saw him go to Celtic and then come back. But nothing has come of it. And I think you're right. He's found a weird spot in this team just for the Leagues Cup at the moment. But he's kind of done enough with those minutes, at least in the last 2 or 3 games, to show that there's some value there, whether that's as uh, just the role player in our team, which is, I think, not what he wants, which would drive a transfer probably more than anything. But I think Cushing's happy to have him be sort of that band aid at the end of the game that can plug in as a utility player. I mean, we've seen him at left back, we've seen him CDM, we've seen him slot in at center back, and kind of having a guy like that, even center mid, and he gets forward and scored our first homegrown goal last year. So Cushing is always going to love like a little utility player like that. So I think as long as he's happy to be here, we're probably happy to have him. But we'll have to see how that shakes out because I can't imagine, especially him, and he definitely feels like he's class, and I think there's been enough moments to prove that to himself and probably his agent as well that they're looking to take that next step at his age to have him somewhere where he's getting like every minute that he can.
Well, so not to spend 20 minutes on Hack, um, but I mean we definitely could. We were coming up with the theory that he was playing a lot of minutes because he was probably getting tape to go and maybe make a move, where it could have been actually something completely different, where he was getting played a lot because he's one of the only rotation players. Like you were saying, Perea, where is he? Like, what happened to that? He was like a flash in the pan, and then now he's gone. Not even, I don't even think making the 18
No,
on the
no.
day. Not even making the
I, I
18.
don't I don't know that he's made the 18. Well, here's the thing, right? Like it's been we were talking about this. We were texting during the game when Hack was the guy that had to come in and the game was starting to really get away from us. It was like, what options does Cushing have to settle this down at the moment? And we're like, wait, Perea exists. Like, where is Perea?
Yeah,
And we start thinking, like, when was the last time that we heard from this guy, heard from him, or heard from somebody involved in the club, period, talking about him and his health? Because I don't remember whenever he originally went out, it being like he's going to be gone for a month or two, which is what it feels like it's been at this moment. It felt like it was more of a low key thing. And now that we mentioned it, I feel like the Burke thing was pretty similar too. Like it felt like Burke was not as serious as O'Toole, like when they kind of both got injured around the same time. And now they've both been working their way back in. But it just hasn't felt like the Perea and the Burke injuries that have needed to kind of drag on as long as they have. And I guess maybe Cushing doesn't want to risk it because it's the League's Cup. And um, when we talked to him at New England, it felt like he was okay with the fact that we had improved on our result from last year. Like maybe that was guidance that he got from management. Like we're just looking for an improvement year over year, and he got that. So I hope that he wasn't like, well, I've checked the box, and at this point, like it's all free football. Um, so maybe that's why you don't see somebody like Perea risking his injury. The importance that he can play potentially in similar situations in the MLS Cup later this year might be in the back of everybody's mind.
yeah. I mean, I would think after you beat Tigres that something flips and you go, okay, well, we already went farther than we wanted to. Like, let's try to win this thing. Why not? Um, I
Mm-hmm.
do think. I mean, we're barely starting to see, O'Toole getting back, seeing Burt get some minutes again. Perea, I don't even know. It may just be a case that Justin Hack has made a push to be somebody who comes in for rotation and is a potentially he's at least in the running for a starting position every week. I mean, if you think Keaton's a little tired or he has an off game or whatever, plugging in Hack to me feels right. Like it feels like it's an okay move. Um, and recently Keaton hasn't. That's something we talked about. Keaton hasn't really been playing, to the level that we think that he can and that he has in the past. So it's kind of opened the door for Hack to kind of come in and be a rotation, like an actual rotation player now, not just like every once in a while if there's a serious injury. He's an actual fringe player now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing I've noticed with Keaton too, or we've noticed with Keaton, is like it doesn't feel like he is. I don't know if it's because of his injury history, or if we really at points are just running him way too many minutes in a row. But he's like typically not a 90-minute player. Like he's often coming out like in the 75th or the 80th minute, and whether that's a factor of his fitness or if Cushing is just always looking to bring somebody in that's a bit more defensive. I just like him always noticing like typically every game like he's good for a good 75 or 80. And unless he's having one of those uh, Keaton Eno games, like he's getting yanked and we're putting in a Hack or somebody else to kind of wrap his roll up. So certainly Perea, when Perea was around, like it was always Hack or Perea that was taking his role at some point late in the game. And yeah, I don't know whether it's fitness or if the injury history plays a role in it, but he I will say against Columbus he did look a bit better, but I don't think he was getting a ton of help from everybody up top after, especially Alonso. Once he scored that opening goal, it felt like that was pretty much all he had to give to the game after what we saw,
Yeah,
because the production in general on our attacking front three, but especially from him, was like just non-existent. Like nobody was really building anything. Even Hannes too, who has been kind of MIA for a little while now.
Yeah, I mean, to the Keaton point, it's like the dude's 4 months younger than me. 4 months younger than me. You should be able to do 90 minutes as a professional. If you're
Yeah.
27 years old, that should
Well, that's
be.
why I think like injury history has to have bled in or something. Like I'm not sure what it is. Like maybe it's muscle
He has
fatigue
had
with the
blood
blood
clots in
clots and
his
stuff.
legs.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, or if he's just being kind of saved in a way for if Cushing thinks, we're gonna win this on pens, which would have been extremely lucky for us to win what our third pen game in the League's Cup run.
Hmm.
As you alluded to on Twitter, like kind of living and dying by the pens. I don't know if that was the play by the coach to kind of take him out and save him for what would be a game either today or tomorrow. Um, but you need to be able to do 90 minutes. Hopefully, obviously this weekend, another matchup. Hopefully he's good to go for a full 90. If not, like I said, in Hack we trust. If it's not Burke at defense, in Hack we trust. And at this point, as striker, I mean, it shouldn't be anybody but Alonso.
Yeah, I mean it has to be Lonzo to go. Obviously, Baki ended up coming into that game late, and it has to be said. I think Cushing made pretty decent subs, all things considered, in this game. Like the first ones that he made were definitely more defensive minded, but he ended up, getting Baki in there certainly late in the game to try to chase after it. But for whatever reason, I really don't know what it is, how sometimes we can look so explosive up top. And then other times it just nobody is interested in shooting on goal or doing anything. Like we've had those games where we're taking like 10 touches in the box and like taking it away from the goal, instead of just like kind of taking easy shots. So it's weird. Columbus is a team that I'm kind of starting to get annoyed with. They took Malday and then he goes on and has this playoff run with them to win another ring, and he's kind of like a bit of a star along the way, to be honest with you, on their MLS Cup run. Um, and I'm not sure if he's fallen out of favor at all because he ended up subbing into this game late. But regardless, after the sort of fluky game against us at home that we were at, Olenek got his red card, and then the refs gift them a penalty because Hannes pushed some guy in the back and they steal 3 points late. And then a game like this, it kind of feels like we've just gotten a bad shake again, like against them every single time. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just if they have that kind of aura about them that like championship teams have, where when it comes down to it, they can win. But we need to find a way to kind of beat these teams and these good managers too, because Nancy is like class. I never would have had on my bingo card like us scoring on Nancy in 10 seconds and him laughing at his own team on the sideline, like ever being a thing. That is something that we witness as like an opposing fan team against him, because he is we've always talked on this show about how he's probably, if we could pick a men's national team manager, it would be him. But otherwise, like when we're looking at coaches in the league, he is probably the best in the league, and it's not very close.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I was watching the game um, with some people who've never really watched MLS, and so they have no context on it. And they're like, "Who's this guy? I think he's Pep." And I was like, he might be though. Like he might be that guy for the MLS. Like he's a very good
Yeah,
manager. He's not necessarily bringing like new tactics and things like that to the game of soccer, but he's definitely up there, and he deserves to wear the casual fit. That was one of the digs. It was like, what's going on with this league? Why are there people
yeah,
wearing T-shirts? But he has earned it. He got the chip. He has his team playing well. He has guys playing, better than I think their ceiling is. And so, when you lose to somebody like that, especially on pens, you kind of have to hold your hands up and be like, you know, okay, it happens. Especially in a tournament where I think we were punching a little bit out of our weight class, and playing with a bunch of players that maybe shouldn't be first teamers like Tana. Uh, not
hmm
to not to harp on him too much, but I mean, I'm overall, my overall grade of the tournament would be that a positive one. We went farther than we should have. Probably went farther than the players that we played thought that they would go, and so overall, it's a W for me.
Yeah, uh, it was an interesting tournament. I think it sort of sucks a little bit because we did start to have those false hopes as it went on and as we win games that like something's possible, and the players gave us that hope by playing well and then kind of not showing up when it required it. But all in all, what we've talked about with the Leagues Cup is it's just good experience to play in those one and done games, like especially with our new lineup, and fair play to Cushing because the Tigres game and then this Columbus game he played back to back identical 11s, and aside from Tana being in there because of Burks forcing it with his injury, like that is our best 11. So these guys learning how to play together in pressure moments, and um, Tigres game going our way, Columbus game, you know, at the end of the day, if we're as bad as we played in that second half, like we did absorb pretty much the best pressure that the defending cup champs can give for almost the better half of half an hour. Like it was not a fun time to watch. Thinking that a goal was going to go in like for the last 30 minutes as an NYCFC fan in a win or go home game. But like giving the players that experience and to be on the field and be like in that many oh shit moments and have nothing bad come from it, and then kind of force pens and at times be up in pens, at least morale wise, because we went down and then Freese was able to make his pen or make his save, and it felt like there was hope there. And then obviously winning our other three or other two penalty shootouts, like that's experience that you literally can't get elsewhere. So I think it only serves to help us in the cup chase at the end of the year. And now we run back into the regular season already on Saturday. The team did not ended up getting any kind of extended break due to the Leagues Cup like a lot of other teams did. Um, and I think we've got Chicago on Saturday, which is a bit of a layup of a team. If I'm honest, it looks like they lost their last three. Takiri just took off, so I can't imagine fans and the organization in general are happy. So hopefully a little bit of a get right game as we get into this final stretch.
Yeah, and yeah, false hope I think is the summary of the Leafs Cup and the Columbus game, specifically when Matt Freese saved that pen. I was like, okay, we might go and do this thing, and then obviously what happens happens. I'm not gonna
Well,
harp on those players too much because at the end of the day, it is what it is. Um,
should we talk at all about the penalty shootout and the misses from those who shall not be named, or
if
should we
if
name them?
if you have comments on it, you can go ahead. My only comments would be, it does suck that on a professional field you have like literally a gaping hole in the spot that is maybe most important. And that's
Hmm.
that's not to give anybody like an immediate out. You still are a professional. You still have to do it. Everyone else after had to do it as well, and they made theirs. So um, it is what it is. But it just sucks that that was a factor.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. It sucks that one of the misses had to come from Maxi. I felt like we were fully moved on, like we had fully gotten over the hump. I think he made four of his last four, so he missed his first two in his career. He's only taken six penalties in the last four he's made. Obviously, one of those being in New England in front of us in the MLS Cup run, where fans in the crowd, including ourselves, were not at all confident as he was walking up to take the kick. But this, yeah, I don't know. This just puts him into kind of a weird mindset. And some people were criticizing pushing for making him one of the penalty takers. What are your thoughts on that? Would you have replaced him with anybody?
No,
Not, you know, not a specific player, but just you in general wouldn't have.
no, not at all. Um, he's one of the leaders on the team, most experienced, been there before type of guy. There's no way, it's kind of like a, people want to have it both ways in the sense that he misses it, so he should have never taken the pen. And had
Mhm.
he, not taken a pen at all, and let's say Kevin O'Toole was the guy to take it and he missed, then they'd be saying, well, why didn't Maxi take one?
Right,
So
yeah.
it's like
Have it both ways.
you kind of want to have it both ways, and at the end of the day, it's the way that it shook out. There's no real way to say, you know, this guy in this position would have done it. It's still a 50-50 chance. Um, if that, maybe even maybe more, maybe less. I have no idea. Um, but those were the cards that were supposed to happen, and that's how it happened. So it is what it is.
And aside from the divot with Santi, like what do you make of him missing? Do you think it's just that, or do you think we have to worry at all? I mean, he's our pen taker. He's been our pen taker all season. He's taken a few. He hasn't missed any of them. He's hit like a Panenka at time, like the coolest dude under pressure. Um, uh, like, should we worry at all moving into the season, or do you think like he just has the divot excuse? And that's what I would lean on if I was the player. I'd be like, the
I think
ground
he
screwed
did
me. Like,
immediately look at it and was like, "What the fuck." But when you
yeah.
placed the ball down, I mean, you literally saw it. You knew it. You could have, I don't know, maybe kicked the some dirt over or something. Placed the ball in
Hmm.
a better position. There's a
Well, the
million
dude
things that you
that
could do.
it looked like the Columbus dude that came up right after him, like immediately like did that, like kicked like turf on it, or like started stomping it out to try to level it out. So I guess just a little bit of like gamesmanship
Like
that Santi still needs to learn.
even if he wasn't trying to fill it, just to put your foot there to see what it feels like. Do I need to play a
Hmm.
little harder, a little softer, whatever it is? Um, you're the professional, not me, right? So like,
I do wonder to what degree too you can like complain to the ref about something like that. Like if you know there is a scenario where a hold is so bad that it has to be addressed, and
right,
like that is probably teetering on the edge of it needing to be addressed. If it's especially if it's going to affect the outcome of something like that.
yeah,
Obviously, everybody else was able to hit it,
right.
um,
Well, that's the
so
thing is
we can't fully
I don't know when it happened. So I don't know if it was like the kick taker directly before it was
right before.
planted super
Yeah.
hard and nobody really saw it, and then Santi goes
Well,
up
to
and
be fair, that was their miss too, right? So that dude
I
might
think
have
it would have
taken
been
not their miss, but when Freeze
their
saved it.
save,
So that
yeah,
might like they might have chunked the ground, and that's why Freeze got the save. And then
right. Or
I don't know.
alternatively, the keeper for Columbus could have brought the ball over, kicked it a little bit, the gamesmanship type of thing. Honestly, I don't know how. I don't remember how the hole happened. Um,
Yeah.
but no, I don't think Santi's going to harp on it. I think he's mentally a lot stronger than he was in seasons past. So hopefully he can just kind of brush it off, go on to the next game, and realize you know I think that's really where Cushing comes into the equation, and he can use his man leadership, whatever you want to call it, um, to kind of bolster his confidence and keep him going. Because look, at the end of the day, it's a kick that took 30 seconds and it decided a lot, but it is what it is. There's other competitions.
Yeah. Yeah. In a tournament that a lot of people say is made up too, and fans are boycotting and don't want to watch. So like if you're gonna ever do it, we prefer you do it now than in October. So
Right. Exactly.
um hopefully both Maxi and Santi both mentally can grow from it a bit, and I think the whole team as a unit probably will as well. Cushing has I'm sure a way with words in the locker room, um, because through some of the toughest parts in the season, there were moments where it was proven that he had not lost any locker room, and the fact that he is even still the manager at this point, and kind of the camaraderie that he has with the guys proves that. So I'm sure he'll be able to whip them into shape, make sure mentally they're like where they need to be. And we just have to finish the end of this season strong. I think ideally, I would want like a top four finish. That way we can definitely get some hosting privileges in the playoffs, get us out to some games. But we'll have to see what happens. This Chicago game will be interesting. Hopefully the boys do get at least a little bit of time off, and it's not just right back into the regular season grind this week for them.
Yeah, and just last thoughts on the Maxi and Santi pens. Um, it's good that it also happened to Maxi because Santi gets to look literally directly in real time okay, how is this guy who's been through it a million times, how is he handling it? And he gets to kind of mirror that and work on himself the same way, so that he can grow and kind of get through it. Um, as far as Chicago, I think I do have high expectations for it. Not just because of who it is, but just coming off of heartbreak. Like, how do you react? How do you um, respond to something that didn't go in your favor? You had somewhat control of your destiny in the sense that you had penalty kicks and you didn't succeed. Like, how do you respond to that? I think the response that you see from them is going to be telling, not only about what the next couple of weeks is going to look like, but what the rest of the season will look like and kind of our outlook as a whole.
Yeah, and that reminded me, that was the one thing that I wanted to talk about on the T Grace game that we didn't get a chance to, just with uh, them playing Leagues Cup games. By the way, every 4 days is crazy, especially for the players and them having to go through that. That's how the episodes fell with us talking about Columbus now. But that what are you going to do when you get punched in the mouth? Like in that T Grace game against what a lot of people said would be one of the toughest opponents that we would play this year. Obviously, kind of a storied franchise from Liga MX, and they scored first against us, like within the first 15 minutes, maybe. And I know Maxi went and almost immediately equalized um, on his own, being a bit selfish, and that way it paid off. And in the Columbus game, it didn't. So it's kind of like the situation you called out with the Pens, like. You can't tell them to do it then and then not tell them to do it another time because, whatever happens in the moment happens. But we got punched in the mouth against T Grays at home in front of the fans when a lot of us went into the game thinking it wouldn't go well for us, especially after what we saw against New England live. Um, and we respond immediately. And then we drop a second one on them, I think, uh, shortly after halftime. And then we kind of lock it down and we put the game away in front of the fans. So hopefully that's a good omen of what this team is able to do, bouncing back from heartbreak or bouncing back from getting punched. And I agree with you. I want like fireworks at Chicago, uh, especially because they are one of the shittier teams. Like we should go and have one of those get right games, have one of those big fun games that we haven't had honestly since Maxi second came back with Alonso, when Alonso goes and scores that hat trick and Maxi just looks like Kevin De Bruyne on the pitch. Like we need one of I think the fan base is like yearning for one of those at the moment. So hopefully they can make something happen this weekend.
Yeah, no, the team desperately needs like a multiple goal win, like so
Yep.
badly, because it's kind of been that thing where we've been creating, not scoring. Um, we've seen this in club history. It's something we're very familiar with. It's almost become an identity of the team that we can create a lot. We don't necessarily finish a lot. So, and then we always build up to this game where we score a ton and finally get that off our back and kind of get back to regular scoring. If we can do that in Chicago, then I think it sets the tone and the stage for a big finish to the league.
Yeah. Well, we need some fun, I think, as a fan base. At least for me, the Leagues Cup, not that it took the fun away, but as we got down, we went to a few of the games in person, and then obviously the ones that we were watching live when it got to those winner go home games, like the tension, it definitely turned on. Like it was simulating the feeling of the playoffs at the end of the year, like where it's not quite as fun at the end of the game when you're holding on to your seat for like 30 minutes, and then obviously we had to watch that penalty shootout, and it's like every breath as they're walking up to take the penalty, it's like, geez, this like can this just be over and can we have just one already?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I bet that the players obviously feel that as well. Like if we're in the stands and we feel that, like they feel it amplified on the field, probably times 10. So I think, yeah, hopefully them having some kind of like fireworky game and then they can just go out and celebrate beating the brakes off Chicago or something. Like just to get out of the tense headspace, I think would be super helpful. So
Yeah, no, I'm excited, and that tension was there, and it definitely added stress, but it made it fun too. Um,
mhm.
so I'm grateful for that. That'll probably wrap up the episode. Um,
Yeah,
it's good to get on and talk again about the team. I'm excited for regular, league type stuff where it's a little less stressful and you can kind of just kick back and enjoy the game. Um, got Chicago obviously, and you should hear from us after that. Probably another digital one as you're kind of stuck out in flooded land.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For all the people that heard about the great flooding of Connecticut this past weekend, um, I'm in the throes of it, like right in the middle of it. Like Southbury, I think is where you saw all those cars kind of upside down and in the water and bridges and roads destroyed. I'm like 10 minutes from there. So it has been I've been in the house basically for
Well,
the entire time.
it's good that you have like power and internet and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And you guys decided obviously to stay home rather than going out and eating. Um,
yeah,
and so all of those things lined up to where we could record today. So there.
yeah. I mean, there were definitely universes where recording would not have been possible for any thousand number of reasons. So,
Definitely.
um, luckily, everybody's safe. Everybody that we know is all good. Uh, things are. I mean, we actually went to Southbury tonight to get pizza, and like typically, what would be a 10-minute drive was like a 30-minute drive because every other road that you want to turn onto is closed. Like, and it's not just closed, like it's destroyed.
Yeah, gone.
So it's
Doesn't exist.
yeah, it's like in a sinkhole, and there's like no hope of this small town doing anything about that within the next 3 to 6 months. I would have to imagine. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way.
Is there
This
like a path
infrastructure is
to the
just fucked.
highway? Is that possible?
Yeah, yeah, there is.
Okay.
Like, well,
Well, your work doesn't have to know that.
yes, right, right. Well, I mean, another factor of this whole thing is in 2024, in August 2024, I have also contracted COVID.
That is the other part. Yeah.
I don't know whether that is still a factor in my voice, and maybe now a lot of people listening to the episode, okay, are like, okay, that's why this guy sounds different today. Um, but yeah, it has been a roller coaster, both on and off the field for the podcast. So
Well, I think you're one more like disaster or event from it being an omen.
an
One
omen,
more, one more, and it might signal end of times. So who knows?
end of times. Yeah, if we lose to Chicago, that would be the third strike this weekend.
If we lose to Chicago, start building your bunker.
Yeah, start building the ark,
But
start
yeah,
loading the animal.
so that's the episode. We'll see you guys uh, after Chicago, and
Mhm.
if you made it this far, just I don't even know. Type
Comment
Nancy's
flood.
not Pep, and
Yeah,
follow us anywhere that you can get a podcast. Follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you call it. That's where we talk the most. We
yeah.
will we'll see you guys next week. Peace.